Liz?
We haven't received any apologies today, Chair.
Lovely, thank you. Item 2 is disclosures of interest. Are there any? And if so, Liz will send you out the relevant paperwork. No? Lovely. Item 3, prohibition of whipped votes and declaration of party whips. Are there any comments? Lovely. We'll go to item 4, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. We met on the 11th of December. And I'll go through them page by page. There's page 1 and page 2. Anybody got any comments? I accept that they're a true record because of your silence. We've got the letters on item 5, letters to the Cabinet member on the 11th of December. Are there any comments on that? Oh, lovely, thank you. We now go to item 6, which is public question time. And ask Liz if we've got a question.
We have received one question from a member of the public, but he isn't actually present at the meeting today.
Okie dokie. Right. I won't read out the letter that we've had, but just to say the public question time, that the question has been received from the member of the public, which does raise some concerns about adult services dealing with complaints. However, as a panel, we don't look at individual complaints, we just look at the data. The panel was aware of the complaints procedure and we did look at that, but maybe I can ask you if you can look at that letter and maybe respond as Cabinet member and officers. And if you do respond, could you keep us informed, please?
Yes, absolutely. I'm grateful to Scrutiny for forwarding us on the questions. As you say, it is relating largely to a specific complaint, so we'll definitely address that in our response. And it does raise some important issues, and we're happy to address those. And we'll keep you in the loop. Thank you.
Sorry,
Thank
Chair.
you, Louise.
Sorry, Chair.
I didn't ask you all to introduce yourself at the beginning of the meeting for us others to know that you were here. Shall we do that now quickly? Sorry. Do you want to start off too?
Yes. So much better, independent member.
Councillor Louise Gibbard, Cabinet Member for Care Services.
Lucy Friday, and I'm the Interim Head of Adult Services and Tackling Poverty.
Amy Hawkins, the Interim Director of Social Services.
Councillor Paxton Hood-Williams.
Alan Jeffrey, Councillor Uplands Ward.
Councillor Sue Jones, chair this meeting, and
Liz Jordan, Scrutiny Officer.
lovely. Sorry that I didn't ask from the beginning. We go on to item 7 now, performance monitoring.
Sorry, Chair. I don't know if you can hear. Can you hear me?
Who's going to lead on this item? Thanks, Lucy.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair,
Okay.
Chair, I don't know if you can hear.
You've had the performance information for November last year, and I believe that the last presentation of performance to the scrutiny panel was in October, referencing August data. So I wanted to begin by just highlighting a few changes to the report as part of our improvement programme. So you will notice some changes, I hope. Still a work in progress, but our intention really in the development that's been done to the report has been to really offer a bit more consistency across the report. What we've tried to do is extract some key headline performance indicators and put them at the top of each section, really just to help highlight what our objectives are and our success measures, really. So making it easier to reference, because it is a lot of information, as you'll be well aware. So you'll see that across the vast majority of the report. I also just wanted to mention that over time, we are working on a summary front page as well, which can be used at any point by anyone, really just to communicate our progress and our intention really in adult services. So that will align with our target operating model and our strategy for the service and our vision. And it will be largely using infographics to bring some of the data to life and to show the connections. So I just wanted to give that overview of the report, and I'll just be hone in on a few headlines, a few highlights from November's data. So starting with our front door, so the common access point, obviously it's a really important barometer when looking at our demand into adult services. That is our front door. So one of the key changes that we had towards the end of last year was the implementation of our assessment and care management restructure, which took place middle September last year. And this has had a really positive impact on the common access point, as we hoped it would. So really, we wanted to ensure that the business of the common access point was for new inquiries and new demand, and obviously enhancing our early help offer, information, advice and guidance to support as many people to remain at home and as independent as possible for as long as possible. So in terms of our performance indicators, you'll see from November's data that improvement is starting to come through. So our indicators show a positive reduction in the overall number of calls received. So our overall demand has come down, which is good. That means the right demand is hitting our front door. And you'll also see the number that are being answered by the front door has increased, which again is obviously positive and what we would hope for, because our capacity is focused on the right things. Another headline that we'd like to pull out is the percentage of all referrals that are supported at the front door with no recourse to social work teams has grown at 54% of all demand into the front door, which is a fantastic outcome. We also know that our system is working well or starting to show improvement because of the number of tasks that are being created. Or to put it another way, tasks which are referenced in page 5 are basically referrals to other social work teams. So the number of tasks has gone down, so that means that the right work is coming to our front door, and that anyone known to us is going directly to their named social worker rather than coming by the front door, which is again very positive for our customers. And then lastly, I would just say that the number of rapid responses as well has also gone down, which again is showing that we're dealing with demand in a timely way. And I'd hope that it starts to indicate that we're preventing an escalation of need as well in those emergency calls, which is very positive. Moving on to our social work assessments and reviews. You may recall when discussing previous performance reports that we were very keen on reducing the time that people had to wait for an initial assessment. I'm happy to say that since transition to the new structure, we have started to reduce our waiting list for initial assessments, which is fantastic, a really good outcome, and we hope it reduces even further. So new people coming to us are having more timely response, in summary, which is good news. We're also seeing a greater variation on the outcomes following that initial assessment, which is really positive. So i.e. alternatives to traditional managed care routes are being explored even at assessment as well. So again, we're seeing that although you'd expect the vast majority coming through to initial assessment are exactly right for initial assessment, our social work teams are still taking every opportunity to explore other means of support, which is good news. Reviews and reassessments are an area that we're monitoring very closely, as you would expect. So we obviously have a statutory duty to complete annual reviews. You'll notice that our review stats are pretty static in terms of reviews completed. You wouldn't have seen much variation following the implementation of the new structure. We would hope that that would have improved. So we're doing a bit of work really to understand why we're still not reaching the level of reviews that we would hope. We do understand a bit about it, as in much of our team are made up of alternatively qualified resource. So we brought in review officers a couple of years ago, which has been a really good success. And the reason why we did that was to really divvy up the work. We've still got qualified social workers working within the team, but it means that we can also use that resource. And we wanted to start growing our own social workers, which has been very successful. So we have a number of social workers who are currently undergoing qualification. Sorry, there are a lot of questions coming through. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
Sorry.
It's probably easier to take them as we go through.
Sorry, Lucy, to
No,
stop
that's
you
okay.
in full strike.
On page 17, social care reviews due. There seemed to be an awful lot there which are overdue. I don't know if you've got a comment on that. And the other one I was looking for was on page 14, I think. Oops.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the graph, the top graph on page 14, the review and reassessment numbers seem to be increasing as well.
That's right. Yep. And that's one of the areas that's why we're looking into this closely. So with the restructure organisation, we did move reassessments to the review function as well, because it's part and parcel. So with the restructure, we've offered a bit more flexibility so that if it's timely to conduct a review, it might not be a full 12 months, but if it's timely to conduct a review because you've raised a change or you've contacted us to say something is different, and you need to speak to someone, then we've brought them forward. So we're having a more responsive approach to reviews. That does mean, however, as you'll see from the stats, that our annual statutory reviews aren't improving at the level that we would hope, because we are being a bit more flexible and responsive to those requests when they come through. Clearly, we want to achieve both.
So you're not always doing them in the sequence that you would expect to get them, is what you're demonstrating.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So we know that 12-month review cycle is absolutely imperative. We have to get better at that. We know we need to improve there. So a number of reviews you'll notice in the stats are being done out of step. So they're not necessarily due, but we are completing them because it's timely for the person.
Yeah, it's obviously impact then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions for Lucy at this stage?
Can you hear us now,
Hand
Chair?
up on the screen.
Cheryl,
Can you hear us?
Yeah,
Cheryl, you have a question?
Tempted a lot.
yes, I'm not sure if you can hear us, Chair.
Are you on mute?
Yeah,
No.
it's a-
We seem to be having a few technical difficulties, Cheryl.
I did it originally when she said about the letter. And she
Yeah.
Sorry, a moment.
She ignored me and went on.
for the bloke to do it now. Just what happened in planning.
Yeah,
Yeah, I put it in the chat earlier.
yeah, and me.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Obviously not. So can people online hear me?
Yep.
Yeah,
We can hear
So-
you, yeah. We can
Yeah.
hear each other.
yeah. So it's just, we could talk amongst ourselves and they
Yeah.
don't
Can
know.
somebody else speak to see if we can work out if it's the
Yeah.
computer or not? Jeff, do you want to say something?
Well, I don't know if you can hear me anyway. So it's pointless me saying anything. I understand this happened
No, I
in
can't
planning.
hear anyone
you know.
online, sorry.
Yeah, this happened in planning. So not. I know you can't hear me, just the people online. So
Sorry, there seems to be a problem online.
Every,
Jeff, can we
Okay,
send a question?
The meeting's going to be exited and come back in, so see if that'll work.
sorry, Mark, I couldn't quite
No, I
hear
was
you.
just wondering whether you could send the chair a message instead.
Yeah, we have. There's quite a few
Oh, you
people
have,
said.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Jeff is still. Somebody say something online.
Yeah, Sunderland Football Club.
Does somebody want to say something to see if we can hear you?
Yeah, just
Hi.
Yeah, you evidently can't.
Victoria, we can't hear you.
Sorry.
Hold on. No, sorry. Give us a few
Difficult.
moments.
Okay.
Can I just say welcome, Mr. Hughes, to the meeting. I know you're able to come in and speak to us, but we've gone through your item and we've passed it over to the cabinet member and the officers for them to investigate. Just to let you know that we've already discussed your complaint. Thank you.
so can we hear each other now?
Well, we can hear you, but they can't hear us.
Yeah.
Oh, still. Do they know that Has anybody put a note on? I haven't read the chat, just to say that we could all hear each other, but they can't.
Yeah.
I'll
Well,
put a
you do
note.
it.
Yeah, I will.
You do it.
The situation's being looked at now. They're logging in to look at the situation to see if we can sort the technical problem out.
You can't hear. Oh, apologies for the spelling. Can't even spell each now.
Shall I carry on? Oh,
We're going to ask Lucy to carry on her presentation because you can hear her. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah.
Can you hear her?
Yes.
Brilliant.
okay.
Okay, thank you, Luce.
Okay, only a few more bits to go through. So we were talking about reviews, and I'll move on with just a few other headlines. You'll notice that reablement, both residential reablement and reablement within the community home care team, we're seeing a consistent level of admissions into residential reablement. The key thing that we focus on here is actually outcomes as well and difference made to those individuals. And as we've become very familiar with, but we're not taking for granted, the work of Bonwine House is exceptional in terms of achieving those great outcomes for individuals, with the vast majority leaving with either the need of ongoing support reduced or with no ongoing support needs, which is a great outcome for everyone. We're trying to increase, and you'll notice that in November we have seen a good steady number of new starters into our internal home care reablement. So that's reablement at home. Our intention really over the next 12 months, or what we'd hope to report back to you when we return to scrutiny with the performance report later this year, is an increase in terms of the number of community referrals into home care reablement. We get a lot of referrals through from the hospital, as you'd expect. We want to balance that capacity a bit because we know that we've got real opportunities of making a difference for people moving into our reablement service from the community. So that's something that we're trying to do, and we're starting to see the shoots of that working out. Outcomes again for the internal reablement team. We've worked with them to set some targets in terms of what good looks like in terms of people, much like Bonamine, who are able to leave reablement with no ongoing care needs. Of course, that's our intention, or at least if there is ongoing care needs, it's reduced, and so that we're really enabling people as far as we can. And then very briefly, just to summarise, we've got long-term domiciliary care, so that's our external domiciliary care. Of course, it'd be remiss not to mention that you can see, it's very plain for everyone to see, that our commission care hours continue to grow month on month. Of course, that's ongoing demand. So, you know, with everything I've just described, it's happening at the front door. We know that over time that will have a positive impact on sorry, there's strange noises coming. You know that over time the work we're doing at the front door will eventually help with our long-term commission care hours. However, you know, it also exemplifies the level of demand that we are managing, that we've managed to reduce our referrals at the front door, and still we're seeing such growth in our external domiciliary care. It really is quite extraordinary. Safeguarding, demand remains consistent, continued with the particular increase in terms of PPNs or public protection notices, and professional concerns have also been particularly high during October and November. The team continue to manage that, and although it is a pressure, we are assured that all referrals are screened and scrutinised within the shortest period of time. Last month in scrutiny, we had the DOLS report, which did highlight the backlog in the DOLS team. So I suppose to offer some assurance, you can see that again in the stats right at the end of the report. There is work going on to adopt a new model or approach with regards to DOLS, which I think was touched on in the scrutiny report last month. This is a model that's been used across Wales and parts of the UK. It will be rolled out with our DOLS team over the next month. We expect that we'll see an initial spike again in terms of backlog, but then that will turn to a reduction over time. And that's really about applying a proportionate approach across a subsection of the DOLS referrals, which is within our legislative responsibilities. Old question in the chat.
Thank you, Lou.
Thank you.
Yes. Liz is going to ring. Right. Okay. Can you say something online to see if we can hear you?
Hello,
Yeah,
hello, hello.
Oh, brilliant.
Oh, can you hear?
Yes.
Oh,
Cheryl, you've got a question.
yeah, I put it in the chat just in case we didn't get back to it. Thanks to Lucy for the report. It's so comprehensive. I feel terrible asking a question, but when we were looking at the on page 12 on the, sorry, I've got to get back to it now, for the social work reviews. I mean, it shows that there is 86% that are outstanding, and I heard what Lucy said about having review officers. So, given that there are review officers doing that, what is the impact on our clients when their reviews are overdue? Because things could have changed quite dramatically in that time. And also, I heard, Lucy, you did say that that if there was a specific, then that, specific case, then that could obviously be reviewed quicker. But I do have concerns over the impact on our clients. So if you could just clarify that. And the other thing was, the other question, very briefly, was, for the life of me, I can't remember what bridging is.
Okay, well, I'll answer the more straightforward question first of all. It's more straightforward for me. Bridging is where we've got our internal home care service. So this is particularly prevalent in reablement. So we've got clients that join us and we work with them for a short period of time for reablement at home. And then their next step, it's been assessed as being ongoing care needs through an external provider. And we have a period where the client shifts from reablement to bridging. So we're bridging that gap to make sure that they have consistent care for the period between them leaving us and starting with a new provider. It's a really good point to raise though, because bridging is essentially, it shouldn't exist. When you look at our brokerage figures, our brokerage flow is really, really good. I'm sure a lot of you will remember times when our brokerage list looked a lot worse than it does now. So our flow to the external sector is very good. So we're doing a piece of work to understand why there would be delays. We understand it's process delay. Reablement are ready to hand the work over, and on paper we have capacity in the external sector, so why should we be bridging at all? And of course that takes away our capacity to pick up new clients, so that is an area for improvement for us. We want to see a reduction in bridging, but that's what that means. With reviews, the data it's quite complex, so I suppose I'll do my best to describe, but you're quite right, 86% overdue, but in November specifically. So that means that in November 24, we had X amount of reviews that were due, and 86% of those were out of date. As you'll see from the data below, we are hitting 70% that have had a review within 12 months. So it's a rolling programme throughout the 12 months, but from November 23 to November 24, we're not hitting our targets. Over the 12 months this year, we're working at a higher percentage. That doesn't mean it's right. You're quite right. Those are the risks that we want to avoid. So people's circumstances will change. As I said earlier, the only reassurance we have is that we have better access for clients to be able to contact us more readily and get a timely response in terms of any change to their circumstances. However, we are not contacting them, so we are driven by their contact to us at the moment. We want to make sure that it's a balance so that we're actually contacting individuals within that 12-month window. But at the moment we do have a bit more flexibility, so we've got a lot of work to do there. We know that there's an opportunity to review our current staffing arrangement and our restructure within that team. We want to understand better what good looks like within that team and what capacity we need to build in there to achieve our targets. Because this is also the best form of prevention. we know that actually if someone's known to us and working with us, we want to take every opportunity to review and discuss with them their ongoing care needs and hopefully avoid the escalation of need as far as possible.
Okay, Cheryl.
Thank you, Chair.
Done.
And thank you, Lucy.
Councillor Jeff Jones, you have a question?
Yes, thanks, and nice you can hear us now. Yeah, you actually started talking when you couldn't hear us with regards to the letter from the public. I was going to ask, are we going to see that letter before it goes to the, or not, the same time as it goes to the cabinet member, or will we see the reply and the letter at the same time then?
I'll ask Liz to circulate the letter.
Thank you. Right. The
Thank
other
you.
question, other question really is about the common access point, which has been a resounding success, I must admit. I remember, when it started, and the expertise has actually grown in it, and it's good really that it's being shared now with, shall we say, other parts of social services. And I think Lucy actually said about some of the external providers as well, which is great. But actually looking on page 9, what's the correlation really? Is that actually just showing the workload that they're actually catering for now? They got so many emails received, so many incoming calls and so many outgoing calls. So that's just really showing the throughput that actually going through the section. And really, that throughput, I'm assuming, the more we actually share, is going to expand. So have we got any problems with regards to, it seems to be an extremely important part of social services now. Are we going to expand that section, or is it sufficient, the stuff we've actually got now?
Thank you. Yes, so we have expanded the information a bit to show exactly as you described the throughput a bit better, to really show the level of work that's going on there. I suppose what I would expand upon though is that when you look retrospectively at our calls and emails and outgoing calls, etc., into the common access point, anything pre-September this year is going to have a certain element which was never appropriate demand for our common access point. So we had a lot of demand coming through there where it was essentially, we were doing everything possible to make sure this didn't happen, but we would get inquiries which were for other teams, from clients who were already known to us and we're working with. When there was no reason for that, they should have been able to contact their social worker or team directly, not go through an extra step or have to explain their story time and time again. So now that we have got a more rigid process to that, we can be assured that our data now from September onwards will be more accurate in showing our true demand. So as you say, as we're expanding that and looking at how we best resource that front door, we are trialing different models of delivery. I know in the other report that's been brought to scrutiny today, we talk about, growing our early help offer. So we're bringing in additional posts and additional roles. And in the report itself, we also mentioned that we're bringing in sensory support into the team as well. So it will be an area that's explored, definitely. We want to expand our early help offer. We want to get better at the front door. And we have a good suite of data and some evidence base to actually work from now. So it's definitely under consideration.
Thank you, Lucy. Jeff, do you want to come back?
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, sorry, Chair. As we're actually sharing, the information or assisting our perhaps external partners as well, is there a case that they will perhaps fund part of the some of the team, Common Access Point team?
We can dream, I think.
Yes.
Well, we're actually helping them, aren't we? Yeah.
Absolutely. And the work of the Common Access Point, or in the broadest sense, anything we're doing around prevention does sit under our regional Section 33 agreement with the Health Board. And it is such an important part, that of avoidance of people with unnecessary recourse to hospital, perhaps, or health services generally. The work of the Common Access Point is critical in that. So We might not currently receive any direct funding with regards to that, but we're certainly providing this information and showing the good work of the Common Access Point in those same forums where those decisions could be made if there was money available.
Good, okay.
Thank you, Lucy. All right, Chair.
Yeah, thanks.
Cheryl, you've got another question?
It's not a question, it's a point of order, Chair. It's regarding the letter that, or the public question. As it's been as it's been pointed out, that it is a complaint letter regarding a specific complaint, then I wonder whether it is in order for that letter to be shared, and whether, because we do have a complaints process, that the letter go through the correct process rather than being shared with us, because it doesn't sound like it was a question that was generally for social services or for the scrutiny committee. It looks like it was using the scrutiny committee to raise that concern or complaint, and where I would have, obviously, you know, the utmost sympathy for anybody who has got a major concern, then I do think that we should still be going through the proper process. So, which is why I've raised it as a point of order as to whether it should actually be shared or not.
Thank you, Cheryl. The letter does not actually identify any particular person. It's not registered as an individual, so we felt, oh, right, hang on a sec. Amy wants to come in. Do you want to say anything on this process? Sorry. Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm not sure what further to add actually than what Councillor Gibbard said. But I think no, we take on board what was written, and the cabinet member will provide a response really in terms of this. So it's a good question to ask actually though, because it is. Yes, we don't get asked questions often, so it's always good to check, isn't it? So in terms of how we respond to it. So yeah, that'll be fine.
Thank you, Amy. All right, Cheryl. Okay, are there any other questions on performance? If not, oh, Paxton.
Just as a general question, in essence, there was a time quite regularly where we regularly used to get the sort of level of discharges from hospital that were being prevented. We don't see those figures any longer. Is there any reason for that?
That is a very good question. No, there is no reason. You're quite right. We do need to bring that into this space because it's a huge part. So we have, as you would have seen in the report, we have referral sources for particular teams, but we don't have the overall picture of the level of hospital discharges, if I'm understanding correctly. So, yep, quite right. Okay, that is something that we can bring to the report. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. And there were questions raised in the Service Improvement, Regeneration and Finance panel, concerns over the red level risks relating to safeguarding disabled facilities grants and connecting care. Are you aware of those questions? That question, and why the performance indicators showing the percentage of care and support plans for adults that were due to be reviewed during the collection period, this is a long one, collection period, which were reviewed at least once during the collection period, was particularly below target, and whether it was a resource issue. Those were questions that came from Regeneration. So just really to highlight that was regarding to certain adult services. So
are you able to answer that now, or can we come back on that? Because
yes, by all means.
I've not seen the question before. But...
Yeah, it'd be helpful if we could formally respond. That would be.
That's fine. That's fine. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
As there's no more questions, we'll go on to item. God, what am I up? We go to item 8 now. The adult service improvement programs, and who's leading on this one? Thank you, Louise.
Yeah, I'll kick off on this one. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to present this report, which I hope you'll agree is a hugely positive one. It's really showing some fantastic progress. So the transformation programme is focusing on improving care services, as we know, ensuring that people can live well and independently in our communities for longer. And it's very much driven by our vision to support individuals, including carers, and ensure they can access the right support at the right time. And this transformation is, of course, occurring in the context of huge financial constraints and increasing demand for services, as we know. So as the report outlines, the programme is structured around our 3 priorities: prevention, to prevent the need for long-term care by offering that early support. And this includes developing and piloting new models of service. We've had, as Lucy's already been discussing in the last item, significant efforts have been made to reorganise our resources in the common access point. A key change is the integration of this dedicated early help worker, which is focusing on support and the community wellbeing officer working alongside the CAP functions. And also, has been referenced, the sensory support services team has integrated into CAP to better support individuals with sensory impairments of vision, hearing, etc. Again, to promote that early there's a lot of long words in this, promote that early rehabilitation and independent living. And you can see that we've had some really great outcomes in November 24. 54% of inquiries to CAP resulted in no ongoing referral to social work. A decreased need for social work assessments, and then with that wellbeing officer pilot, 57 people awaiting social work assessments, 45 engaged with community-based support, and 13% no longer require a formal assessment. So I think that's, everyone you'll agree, that's a really, really good outcome. With the second priority of promoting independence, then this is about encouraging individuals to live independently, delaying or preventing the need for longer term managed care, and looking at developing and enhancing our reablement services and pathways to access these. So the report talks about our home care reablement service, the step down beds at T Westfield, which has had some, is going really well, the use of assistive technology being actively promoted. I think it says about how referrals for assistive tech have increased by 33%, and I think we talked about that before, and how it's a really great way for people to live more independently at home. Prioritising resources, again, that's about making sure our resources are being used effectively to meet this growing demand. As we've discussed, the reorganisation of the assessment and care management teams has really focused on having these clear contact points, consistent support, and a reduction in process steps along the way. Our externally commissioned domiciliary care, we are optimising, looking at the new models of care. And as we've talked about before, regional collaboration then across West Glam, improving the use of pooled funds for services, and rationalisation and the specialist, sorry, I'm really tripping over myself today, around the provision of specialist equipment through the regional equipment store. And again, some really good outcomes there in terms of reduced inquiries and referrals, reduced waiting times for assessments, much more efficient use of the equipment, etc., and reducing costs there. So looking ahead to 25-26, the programme carrying on being refreshed to reflect the progress that we've made. It's monitored via the Adult Services Continuous Improvement Group and the CMT Transformation Board, and I'm sure we'll continue to bring reports back here outlining the progress made. So that's a very whistle-stop tour. I don't know, Lucy, if you want to pick up anything else that I've missed.
Thank you, Louise. Do you want to add anything? No? Don't think you can. Are there any questions for Louise and on the officers? Go on.
Can I ask a general question, if I may, Madam Chairman?
Yes, Paxton.
I'm going to the Dementia Hub tomorrow, so to what extent is that impacting on adult social services these days, the growth in that area and the impact that it has?
The hub itself, or dementia as in general?
Dementia is across the area, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a huge impact. So the work of the Dementia Hub is fantastic, though, the links to the Dementia Hub. And I know that, just as a side point, we're linking across things like community equipment or assistive technology as well as Dementia Hub. There's been some really positive links there. But yeah, demand is huge. One of the key programs that we reference in the report is around the T Westfields project, if you want to call it that, I suppose, but the 8 beds in T Westfield, which are specifically for dementia clients, and you know, really positive outcomes, and actually offering that reablement opportunity to a wider cohort is so important, isn't it? So that's one area where we have responded to that demand in a slightly different way and trialled different ways of working. I don't know what the population needs assessment. Oh yeah, of course, yeah, and our population needs assessment does highlight the growth in terms of dementia clients within our demographic, you know.
As you get older, you get more of it.
Yep.
Thank you, Lucy. Councillor Cheryl Philpott, you've got a question?
Yeah, thanks. It's I think we've all got really good stories about Bonamine House. And I just wondered how, linking it in with the news headlines that we hear about hospitals and this bed blocking, I'm just wondering whether there are plans to increase step down processes. This is something I think that most of us will have had questions from our constituents about. Why don't we bring back the old gosh, I can't even remember what they're called. You're not the only one, Louise, who's tripping over herself today. I can't think now.
Community
we used to have
hospitals,
convalescent homes, didn't we? Well, I mean, you know, the reason we shut convalescent homes, I'm quite sure, is that they just were not fit for purpose. Most of them were these red Victorian buildings, and they just weren't fit for the purpose there. But we do have, as you say, we've got Bonamine House, Tiwan Arloedd, as you said, but it's a very few beds compared to what is probably needed. And I was wondering, I know that we have a much better way of working with the other organisations now, health. You know, isn't there a way of pooling money to be able to, even if it's in an interim period, to provide more beds, to actually, you know, reduce the number of people who are waiting in hospital to be released? Because it does tend, I feel I think it's a very unfair point that people, the press in particular, makes that, or media makes, that it would appear that bed blocking is because there is nowhere else for these people to go, you know. And I would just like some perhaps more information about that, and perhaps reassurance that we are doing all we can. And actually, if we had assistance from other people and from other organisations, that perhaps we could do better. I think I've said that in a very simplistic way, but I think, you know, that's the way our constituents look at it. They look at it that simply. Sorry, I hope you got the question in there.
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl.
I think that we'd all agree with everything you said, and it's certainly something that has come through as well from colleagues. I think it's fair to say that it's a gap that's been highlighted by colleagues as well across both health and social care. So I suppose one reflection would be that Bonamine is successful because it has a very specific scope and remit, and I suspect that the you know, it is about residential reablement. It is about being able to promote independence and people to return home, and that's why we have such good outcomes for our residents, because that is the focus. Quite one of the challenges can be that focus not getting what's the word, misinterpreted, to aid quicker discharges from hospital, because there is something else needed. So it's the something else, isn't it? The further step down provision, as you describe, is absolutely it. It might not always be reablement. It might be for further assessment. And I know that it's not limited to Bonamine within our own internal resource, though. Our residential homes across the board have a provision of, you know, offering that assessment step. which we do promote, and we're active in making sure that people aren't staying in hospital any longer than absolutely necessary. But it is about safe discharge from hospital as well. So I think it's a mixed model, and it is something that is being explored in the regional space. It was something that came up in discussion, particularly when looking at winter planning, about how could this be offered? Is there something to explore here? I know that it's something that has been mooted as a potential area of investigation with regards to our intermediate care services review. So there's a big piece of work going on about the best use of our pooled funds and grant money, and is there opportunity there? So you're right, there is a gap, and we're doing everything within our power to ensure that we're making best use of our internal resource, to ensure that if we do have beds which are appropriate and safely staffed, that we're able to offer those up as viable step down beds. But we also want to preserve the good work of places like Bonamine and T Westfield for that very specific purpose. So we want to make sure that doesn't get lost or diluted, so we still achieve the best outcomes for our clients. Amy, I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, this is incredibly timely. There's a lot of work happening in this space, and the council and our partners in the health board were set a 50-day challenge by the minister back in November to really say, look, we've got to do everything we can working together to support people to be discharged from hospital. It is quite complex. I think that's fair to say. You know, there's lots of reasons why individuals we get, but we are working together. We're escalating on a case by case basis where needed to sort of look at those issues of why somebody can't be safely discharged and why that is, whether that's equipment needed in the home, whether that's additional reablement support. You know, so we're looking at it, but the demand is incredibly high. I think that's said. You know, year on year, the demand is incredibly high, but also we're still working on it. We're still fully in sort of peak winter as well. It might not slightly feel like it, but it really is in terms of those numbers. So yeah, we keep working on it really.
Can I just come back on something that Lucy and Amy just said? One of the points I was trying to stutter out was a joint or group finance, and Lucy did refer to internal financing, and this needs, and I'm, you know, we know that the minister is on short shrift here to be able to, you know, give some good feedback on what's happening, but there has to be a commitment, I think, that there is a pool where you've got an issue, that there needs to be more money put in, perhaps, to be able to use a pool of money to be able to counteract this. And this is where I think, you know, that it's unfair on the council, that it's just, well, we have to look at internal monies. There was nothing said about there is collaboration with other with the health service, but that's collaboration, but it needs that funding for collaboration as well. And I you know, there's a need, I think, to be assured that that is going to be, even if it's not there now, that it will be there in the future, and that the Welsh Government understands that it requires this commitment as well, for not just not just for collaboration, but financial collaboration as well.
Lucy.
Yeah, apologies. I think just to clarify, I think I possibly said or didn't phrase it correctly. So just to offer assurance, there is the provision of all services that accommodate pathways from hospital. It sits under our regional and shared pooled fund arrangements with the health board. So for example, and we have our residential care homes sitting within that schedule, which reflects council contributions and the health board contributions, and also the use of regional integrated fund monies as well to support with the provision of those services. Just to clarify that point. So we do have some arrangements in place. Whether they are sufficient to meet the level of demand is another question, but we do have those regional agreements in place, and it is a pooled fund arrangement. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. I've got Councillor Paxton Hood-Williams wanting to ask a question.
I don't know how useful this is going to be in a sense, but certainly I fought very hard at one time to try and avoid the closure of Fairwood Hospital. And basically hospitals of that nature, those convalescent hospitals, very much were providing the same sort of service in many ways that Bonnymine House does, because it gave patients that opportunity to be out of a main hospital, but to have supervision, medical supervision at all times until such time that they were really ready to go home. I could see the sense of reintroducing that. I suspect it's never going to be reintroduced, but that's another story. And I'm not quite sure what the finances of it would be in that stage. But at the time, the health board was determined, absolutely determined to close it down. I managed to stave it off for 5 years, but eventually, at the end of the day, they were forced. We went to a situation where it had to be closed, and they convinced the CHC at that point in time. But certainly, what was provided there certainly would have prevented a lot of the bed blocking that currently happens now, and would give that period for the patient to recover to the stage where they can go home quite safely and probably live a normal life thereafter, without having too much support in there at that stage. Anyway, I'll
Thank
just
you, Baxter.
cut that into the mix, and
Thank
if anybody ever chooses to listen to that, I'd be very pleased.
Jeff, you had your hand up and now it's down. Do you still want a question?
No, I did. I was going to ask the same sort of points as Cheryl actually brought up. So, no, it's been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Managed to switch the light on this time. As I've sort of looked at the information and obviously have some insight into the background in historical terms, the following sort of questions occur to me when we're looking to assess the individuals that are in some need. I mean, there's an issue about gender, I think. There's an issue about age, an issue about illness or handicap, an issue about whether at that time of life they have a partner or do they have children, whether they have a prognosis, whether they have assets, whether they have a domestic situation that is settled or threatened in their terms, whether it's a house or a home. And more to the point, I think, which often goes missed, is do they have a carer and do they have friends? And the last one is any other assets that are available to them. Now, not everybody meets all those particular characteristics, I would imagine. But I can think of people that I've known and met and have been friends who, in many ways, are denuded of most of those things that I've suggested. They're very much on their own. The saving regard was they did have friends. So I wonder if that comes into the play when you're looking to deal with issues that are never straightforward, in my view.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Tony. It's completely, the direction of travel that we're trying to go is to have much more emphasis on that building up people's resilience in terms of their community connections and that early help, that prevention. That's what our local area coordination network is all about, kind of connecting people to make sure that they've got, support around them at a much earlier stage. So they have, as that word resilience again, they've got that. People around them to help them before we get to the stage of going into hospital, coming out of hospital, needing care and things like that. I don't know if that really answers your question, or if is that what you were going to say, Lucy?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, people rarely present with one clearly defined issue. It's never as straightforward as that, and because we're human beings, aren't we? And I suppose just to emphasize what Louise has already said, that was the key thing. Just a very small pilot conducted with SCVS really highlighted that. I think I do reference very briefly in the report about multiple organisations being accessed, but just out of those 45 people that they engaged with, it was a multitude, and we have got the breakdown of all of the organisations that we're linked with and the variation of support, from isolation and loneliness to help with shopping and just befriending and all of that. And that is a key part of our prevention and early help model as Louise described. So yeah, multifaceted always.
Thank you both. Loneliness is huge in the community, and yes, and the local area coordinators, in my mind, do a tremendous job. Yeah. Tony, yeah. Are there any other questions? No, so we'll go on to item 9, I think it is, which is the work plan. So can I just thank you officers for all your involvement today and the lovely answers you've given. Looking forward to meeting you again. Take care. Okay, right, we go on to the work plan. We've got the information out there, and there's something I want to bring forward really for your discussion. And it's looking at some of the services on the ground to see if we can actually visit and maybe have some experience of what is happening out there on the ground, apart from the data. So open it up to the panel to see if that is something that you would like to happen.
What are you suggesting, Chairman, exactly?
That we maybe make small visits to some of the services that are being provided, to talk to some of the clients that actually use those services and to have an idea of what the service is actually delivering.
Oh, do you mean like Bonamine House? Oh, sorry, Mark. Sorry.
No, not at all. I think that would be very helpful, Chair. I'd be fully supportive of that idea.
And yes, somewhere like Bonamine House, it would be very difficult to go into people's homes because we have to respect their homes, and some of the nursing establishments are actually the people's homes. But we've got day services within the authority, we've got respite services, and we've got Bonamine House re-enablement. And I'm thinking we need, as councillors, to understand what is actually going out on into the community is all about for the clients who use them. We have a lot of data, but very much are not aware of what is actually out there.
You'll remember full well that when we started on this council, Chairman, we used to have inspections, didn't we? But those were inspections rather than looking to see if the facilities were available. I don't know. Are you looking at something?
I think it's for our information to get to know what is out there. As councillors, we need to be educated, I think. Cheryl, you wanted to come in? You'll be muted, Cheryl, again.
I think Chris was before me. I don't know why I've come up as 1 and he's 2. So I'll defer to Chris and then I'll come in.
Okay, Chris, do you want to come forward?
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, what Paston was saying is quite right. You know, we used to have rota visits. We've done loads of different visits to different establishments in social services, and there's no reason why that shouldn't carry on, as long as you give enough notice to people that you're going to be there. You know, I do think in the fullness of the service, it's really encompassing us to actually do those visits.
Thank you for that, Chris. Cheryl, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I mean, you probably gathered from some of the questions I asked today. I do feel that our social services under a huge pressure, and particularly from, you know, the media and the way that they point to the fact that it's social services, it's people are bed blocked, people are being bed blocked because there's nothing for them to come back. You know, the assessments haven't been done. And I'd like to look at sort of like, you know, our front door at that basis. But whilst people, what are the hospital doing? So when people are in hospital, they've obviously got hospital social workers and nursing social workers. So what happens at that point? Why is it that we've got all of these people who are not able to come home for some reason? So there seems to be this gap between those people who a clinician has said, you're okay to go home now, and then why they can't come home. And Lucy did explain there's a number of reasons. They might not have the facilities at home to come home to, but given that they've been in hospital for quite some time, you'd think that as soon as they go into hospital, people would be thinking, right, we need to be looking now at what needs to be done in the home before they come home. Do they need all of that? You know, will they need care when they come out? And there are some illnesses where you're going to know if people have had a stroke or a heart attack or whatever, there's going to be some way of knowing what they've done. So, you know, and I thought that many years ago, we started with when a patient went into hospital on day one, that they were already looking for the exit of when that person would be leaving and working towards that. But that doesn't seem to be what's in place now, because if it is, then why have we got this continuing problem with beds that aren't available in hospital, and why ambulances are waiting outside to put people in to hospital? So there just seems to be, I can't explain it really well, but it just doesn't seem to be this proper coordinated approach here. So, and given that we are protecting social services, then, you know, because they're our remit, and obviously we challenge, that's what Scrutiny is all about. But I also think that we should be able to ask the questions, why are we so overburdened at that, you know, as well. So yeah, so that's what my thought would be.
Thank you, Cheryl. Are there anybody else want to say something? Chris, do you want to?
Yeah, can I say, I think to understand the problems, and Tony would know about this, to understand the problems about bed blocking, you need to understand what the occupational therapists have got to do. And the occupational therapist will go to a house where a person who's in hospital needs to come out. And that determination is made then whether or not a person can come out safely. So really, it's understanding what the requirement of that person is. Now, the reason we're all overburdened is, as you said, there's no convalescent homes, or there's no halfway house or anything for people to come out. But that's been the case now for the last 12 years or 15 years, since they closed down Mount Hill House, they closed down Fairwood, as Paxton said, you know, so they've closed all of these places down. And there is no halfway house, if you want. And we've also closed our homes down for a number of reasons. One, they're not suitable. Two, they've gone old-fashioned. Number three, they cost a lot of money to run. So at the end of the day, those are the reasons behind it. It's the cost of keeping the convalescent homes off. It's the fact that we haven't got the finance to keep places like the ones in Sketty, Parkways in Sketty open, and use that as a halfway house, and that would release bed blocking. But you need the money from, if you like, a social fund to pay for it, and that's the reality of it. On the other side, that kind of just saying about the occupational therapist, when you get occupational therapists, it's their duty to make sure that wherever that patient goes is safe. And you can't blame them for that. So those are the issues that surround bed blocking. And unless we get to the position where we have a social fund directly paying for places like Parkway in Sketty, or for another home somewhere else, then you're always going to have bed blocking, because the idea of adaptations to houses is always going to take more time than it is than the money coming through. Because I don't know what the timescales are now, but I seem to remember at one stage they're 18 months. So, you know, you're going to have someone stuck in hospital for 18 months while they adapt their home. So I think those are the issues that surrounding it. And I think, you know, until we get to that position that people come out and they can go straight into an adapted facility, then you're always going to have bed blocking, unless there's a social fund.
Well, I think this is something that then, sorry, Jeff, that we could raise in this scrutiny committee to say, well, you know, you're asking, you know, Minister, you're asking to, you know, what the problems are, but they are really quite obvious. There is an elephant in the room, and this is what we really need you to understand and to help the whole of Wales with, because it isn't just Swansea that's got bed block, it's every single hospital within Wales. And I suppose it's no coincidence that all of the rehabilitation hospitals actually got closed around at the same time as well, because many of them were funded by social services and they didn't have the money. So I mean, you know, and it's cost a lot of money to keep somebody in hospital. So, you know, releasing money from one part to go to another is surely a better use of finance. And I think if we can, you know, if we in Swansea can raise it and get an outcome out of it, then why not? Sorry, I'm on my hobby horse now, aren't I? Sorry.
Thank you, Cheryl. Jeff, you wanted to come in?
Oh, Sue, you know, you mentioned earlier really that an important part of this, so say, jigsaw really is as well are the carers at home. Now they seem to have, shall we say, a greater workload actually placed on them. I'd like to know what sort of criteria, you know, they have to meet in order to, well, you know, receive one of these people that are actually coming out for hospital. You know, how do they actually measure whether, or what's expected then, you know, from people, from home carers? It always seems to be overlooked. I know, you know, you actually said about some of these places were open years ago. It seems to be that more and more is expected from people, you know, from people living at home to look after the shall we say, the older person. I'd like to know really how they measure that these days.
Thank you, Jeff. I think we've gone off the point of what I brought forward, in that to go and look at the services to give us a basis. Right, hold on a sec, of what we are looking at to really get to know what services we as Swansea City do. Yeah, Paxton, you want to come in?
Sorry, Chairman, I was coming back to the point, the discussion we were having then. But I think what we were talking about there was a reason why I was asking to see bed block and information again. But I certainly had the impression that during the COVID crisis, there seemed to be far better cooperation between the health board and the council in terms of getting people out as quickly as possible, even to the extent where, as I understand it, there could be a social worker waiting for somebody on the doorstep as they were delivered back home. I don't remember exactly all the details of that. And I'm just wondering why we can't still continue with that cooperation. Perhaps somebody would like to explain that at some stage. But in terms of what you're saying, obviously, I think that would be a reasonable idea.
You know, I know Bonnie House do rehab, and I've actually witnessed 2 people coming out of hospital and actually going back home. So they do a good job. So how do any of us know that that job is being done? And that's my reason for wanting to do visits to these areas. So can I go forward with that and maybe put some proposals together so that we can actually get out there? You know, obviously, you don't want it to be onerous for anybody, but you're welcome to you know, to come along and make a visit to see what's happening on the ground.
Yeah, I agree, Chair. I just think perhaps Liz has taken some questions that we've all brought forward, and maybe this question, I mean, say Paxton asked for the numbers of people being released from hospital. I do think this is a really important question, and maybe it could be put on an agenda for a future meeting where we have a lot more in-depth information about this subject.
I agree. You know, the Health Authority, Helen St John, hasn't attended this meeting for quite a while, and I wonder why. Yeah, so maybe we are wanting to know the cooperation between health and social services to address some of these issues. But that, again, is something a little bit more than what I'm actually asking now about the visits to some of the services. But it is something that maybe Liz has kept an eye on. Right, we got Victoria, you wanted to come in? You're on mute, Victoria. You're on mute.
Oh, sorry, there we go. Just saying that some of these services you're going to talk about seeing are places that are already under pressure. I don't know if there being a big visit or people feeling put under more pressure. I agree with what you're saying about the figures. I think that's going to be really interesting. I think, yeah, some visits, but again, I don't think 15 of us turning up to a place where they're already working very hard is going to be something I'd like to participate in, you know?
And that's your right not to, address. And it's not to put any staff under pressure. It's actually to give us some
We will, though.
education and know how things are working. As
Chair,
a member
I
that
must
worked
admit
in social services prior, I don't think the staff feel pressurised when somebody goes to visit. We were always honoured that somebody had the
Yeah.
want to come and see us, to see what we
Yeah.
were doing.
Yeah.
It's just, it's the way, I think, a way forward, but obviously it's up to everybody to attend or not. Jeff, you wanted to come in?
No, sorry, I just, you said what I was going to say, really, that people welcome you, they like, people to actually visit. But, I wouldn't advise for the whole committee to actually go. You're not going to go to one place, I'm sure you're going to go to a number of places, and it'll be a few of us, perhaps on each one, whoever decides. Some people may not actually want to take part, but I don't think it'd be a good idea for 15 people to turn up,
No, neither do I. Mark, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I just say, I tend to side with you, Chair. I think be here as a critical friend, but also a supportive friend as well. I can't see any negatives, really, and I think it could benefit both parties. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, if there's nothing more to be said, I'll close the meeting for tonight and hopefully go forward. Thank you all for attending.